Welcome to the Parks, Arts, Education, and Equality Subcommittee. Today is March 14th, 2018, and I am calling this meeting to order. Do we have any call to the public? I don't have anything. Okay, perfect. Item number one is the approval of January 24th, 2018 minutes.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Items 2 through 7 are for consent. Does anybody have any questions about any of the consent items? Can I have a motion?
I move to approve.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes. Items 8 through 11 is information only. Does anybody have any questions on items 8 through 11? No questions? Okay, I'm going to move. Hey, great efficient meeting. Item number 12 is for discussion and possible action. This is the RFP release for Head Start Birth to 5 program, childcare partners, and educational service. This is the item that will go back out to the community for Head Start preschools or locations.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee. We are here to discuss the Head Start Birth to 5 program. I am Marshall Franklin, the Interim Director of the Human Services Department, and here presenting with me is Amy Corvo, who is the Deputy Director over our Education Services Division. And I'll allow Amy to begin the presentation.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the council. I am here today to talk to you about the Head Start Birth to 5 program, which is my, favorite part of the day, is to talk about Head Start is a comprehensive school readiness program that prepares America's most vulnerable children, and we have 2 primary goals. We will focus on child outcomes and stabilizing families, and we are a 2-generation approach that works to end the cycle of poverty for children based on the needs for both the children and the family. And the Head Start Birth to 5 program is preparing to apply for another 5-year funding cycle. And we just received word that we will be moving forward with a non-competitive process. So we're very proud of that. Currently, we have 188 infant toddlers served with our child care partners. We have 2,963 preschoolers served with our delegates, as we know them today, and our cost per child varies based on the number of children served. And we have a limited number of 3-year-old slots, and that varies as our dependent on where families live in the city. And our slot distribution is not following the recommendations of the community needs assessment. And we see that as we're analyzing some trend data over the past couple of community needs assessments. And currently we have 7 school districts and 2 nonprofits as our partners. Recently, Head Start has released the Head Start program performance standards updates in September of 2016. And since that time, our program has been making small adjustments that bring us closer to full high-quality implementation of the standards. This slide illustrates some of the elements that quality Head Start Birth to 5 program still needs to address more fully as the expectations of quality rise, and this will impact our service delivery model moving forward. Some of those highlights are increased focus on outcome measures, an increase to the number of 3-year-olds so that we're truly building a birth to 5 system, to create teacher-child ratio, provide more job-embedded professional development, and allowing for additional days in the calendar year to ensure home visits are conducted with the families. Currently, we contract with what we know as delegate agencies for the preschool portion of our program. We will be recommending in the next 5-year grant that we will move from calling them delegate agencies to child care partners for infants and toddlers, and educational service providers will be serving our preschoolers. Some additional things that we will need to consider moving forward as we prepare for our 5-year grant is that where in the city does our data identify as our most in need? And this could result in the redistribution of services to more targeted parts of our community. And we also need to look at what is the maximum amount of children that we can serve with our current budget. This could result in up to potentially 535 slot reductions to the preschool services. We also will anticipate continuing to put out $16 million to purchase the preschool services to meet the grant requirements, and approximately $2.1 million will purchase the educational services needed for infants and toddlers. So here is a general comparison between our current status and what we are potentially proposing in the next 5-year grant. This early Head Start Child Care Partnerships is not included in this because it's newer program that we have, and so there's not a need for any significant changes to be proposed at this time. The Head Start Birth to 5 program is proposing to make significant adjustments to the application as it relates to preschoolers when our application is due in March of 2019. The first step in this process is to identify potential partners that would be written into our grant application for approval. So we would move from the 9 delegates who currently serve preschoolers. We would hopefully today seek approval to put out an RFP to identify new vendors. This slide illustrates the current level of preschoolers being served and some potential proposed changes to that. We would continue to maintain the current level of full day slots that we wrote and were awarded for last year. There would be a change in the increase to the funding in order to adjust for the quality requirements. And currently the cost per child varies and takes into account economies of scale, but we are proposing that there would be a singular cost per child proposed in the next 5-year grant cycle. So today, we are hoping that you will approve and asking that you approve us to be able to issue the RFP to identify child care partners for the infants and toddlers and the educational service provider RFP. We anticipate for child care partners, we would be evaluating, a team of folks will be evaluating the proposals for child care based on this point breakdown, and the educational service providers based on that breakdown of points. So today we request approval for the release of 2 requests for proposals, 1 for the early Head Start Child Care Partners and 2 for the Head Start Educational Service Providers.
And Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, that concludes our presentation, and we'll answer any questions you may have.
Question, Jay. Councilman Nowakowski.
This is great that now we're going to be able to open it up for other vendors. One of the questions I have is on the point system here, really doesn't talk about like low-income areas or areas that are on the census tract that have free lunches and stuff like that. Is that a part of that somewhere, somehow?
So, Councilman, how we plan to address that is part of the RFP. We have identified some of our most in need communities and have zip codes aligned for them that will be either identified in the RFP, and then we will make sure that those are addressed as we move forward in the evaluation system.
But is there some points if you're in those certain tracks or those certain areas that you get extra points for that?
Yes, and what we're calling opportunity zones.
So where would that be in the structure? You have the
What
child
he's
care
asking is where would those
partnership, and then
categories-
you have the points for the educational service providers.
I'm sorry, it is under the method of approach.
And the other thing is, before we approve this RFP, have we had some type of workshop training where individuals that are interested in applying to this RFP, they actually know what the rules are and the regulations
Yeah.
and actually help them through the process?
Yeah, so over the past year, we have had multiple site visits with people that are interested. We've also organized 6 meetings throughout the city where we're giving a significant presentation, talking about what the partnership would look like. And we're currently about halfway through those presentations.
And if I may add, Vice Mayor Pastor and Councilman Nowakowski, Amy and her team did a very good job at notifying key partners and agencies who potentially could be interested. I believe we also worked through the Arizona Head Start Association and other associations such as that. So we were spreading our notification of this potential opportunity, if you approve the RFP, for individuals to be able to come to those meetings as well as submit proposal, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if we approve this RFP today, I mean, I have a handful of individuals that have approached me over the years. Can I still give those names out, or is that,
Yes. Yes,
can I contact those individuals to contact?
yes.
Councilman Nowakowski, if you wish, yes, most definitely can
Right.
give them my name or Amy's name. We can ensure that they receive the information about the informational meetings and when, if you approve, the RFP will be released.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Stark?
You had mentioned opportunity zones. When we went through that exercise of opportunity zones, a couple within District 3 were really more industrial or more commercial. That's not going to preclude other census tracts that may have more residential and then have more draw from children, right?
So I just want to clarify, so the opportunity zones that we're talking about are looking at birth to 5 data.
Okay, thank you.
Third-
All right, I'm glad you
I was just
clarified.
gonna-
Okay, thanks.
Third grade reading, we're looking at the numbers of removals in that community. We're looking at food deserts,
Okay, perfect.
that type of data.
Okay.
I guess what would be good is if you can, if possible, name what are considered opportunity zones. Because there's opportunity zones that there's 2 different opportunity zones and there's 2 different definitions for opportunity zone in many of our different committees. So the opportunity zones that you are alluding to have to do with a food desert.
They are, yeah.
Go ahead.
An internal working conversation that we are looking at as we're looking at where we would because our charge is to find the best match. One, they have to be families and children in poverty, but they also have to have additional risk factors. So it's those additional risk factors we're looking at as well. So where do we have children birth to 5 with the most intense poverty, where we have removals or DCS, where we have issues with nutrition. And from there, in 3rd grade reading, we looked at significant amounts of data and have identified zip codes and school districts.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, for Amy's benefit, we came to you to create opportunity zones through community and economic development. So for the sake of confusion, what we may want to talk about is delineating a different name for the criteria for Head Start and not saying opportunity zone, so people don't get it confused with the designation of opportunity zones. We just got approved through council. So we will come up with a new term outside of opportunity zones.
I just got an email from someone in the Sunny Slope area that wondered why it wasn't a part of the opportunity zones for CEDs. So there is confusion of it.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you didn't know.
My question is method of approach. What is the rubric, or I guess it kind of say, but it sounds like there's a rubric under the method of approach. I'm just using that as an example, that there's a certain criteria within this method or approach that they need to score certain points. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So some of the things that were there, that is part of the application. So that is where they're identifying where in the community they want to serve. They also have to respond through narrative, things such as their how they do expulsion and suspension. There's things that we want to hear about that, about how they address chronic absenteeism, about their methods of approach of how they would implement some of the requirements of the Head Start.
Site visit. Is that a site visit, meaning do they have the equipment in order to house a Head Start or host a Head Start? I'm assuming this has to be the environment that
Correct.
the students are learning in.
Correct. And it is mostly based on whether or not they're going to meet the actual requirements for square footage and some of those things for Head Start.
And budget?
So there is a portion of it that asks them to respond to a risk assessment and about how fiscally stable they are in order to be able to implement the requirements of Head Start.
Okay. And that's for the child care partners, which are currently the 9 delegates, or they're called delegates?
Yes, the educational service providers.
Then okay, are the delegates the educational service provider, or are they the child care partners?
So right now, delegates is a term that we use for those who provide preschool services, and they will no longer be considered delegates, but move to educational service providers in the new grant.
Okay, these are the delegates. I'm just getting vocabulary. And then the child care partners are what? Are they new?
They still are child care partners.
Okay,
We're looking
got
for
it.
child care partners, yes.
So my question was training and technical assistance plan, because that's only 20 points. And I'm assuming this has to do with professional development, or if the teachers are trained in early childhood. I find 20 points very low.
Madam Vice Chair, we did not weigh that because when we're identifying childcare partners, they are often not meeting the Head Start requirements, but the Head Start Childcare Partnership Grant does allow for us to utilize some of that funding to help them achieve the minimum qualifications. So they have to have a plan in place in which to hire qualified staff and how we might work together to get them up to the minimum qualifications.
So I can get be awarded an RFP, and at that moment, my staff is not considered unqualified. And then the dollars that will then be used then to, I guess, qualify my staff.
Correct. And that is
And that
part,
backwards, but okay.
it is part of the mission of the Early Head Start Child Care Partnership Grant is to elevate the quality of that child care partnership.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is I rather at the beginning have a qualified candidate or teacher and then shift them and move them to excellent.
But Vice Mayor Pastor,
so
let us take a look at that.
That's
Let's take a
just
look at
me.
that.
But I also understand that we need to get qualified teachers in the pipeline too. So this is one method of getting qualified teachers into the pipeline and then move them on to the next level of possibly becoming a teacher. So I know this is a way of creating the pipeline or pathway for them. So I understand. It's just I was like, this is really low. Okay. All right. And one more question was about all-day care. It's in
Yes.
the slide. When I went back to visit the Head Start, the organization, what was drilled into my head was we are now looking for quantity and not, I mean, we're now looking for quality and not quantity. And then I pushed back and said, so you're asking for smaller or less Head Starts, versus Head Starts with more of a quality training and delivery of teaching? And they said yes. Then in that whole conversation is that they said that they want to move to all day. On one of those slides, there's two areas where it says half day.
Correct.
So my question is, why are we not moving all day? Because when I was in the midst of trying to help a school with their Head Start, and we were asking, can we move this to full day? I was told no, only because we have to go through this process. So my question is, if we know that the federal government's going that way, and we know that that's the conversation we had, why are not all our Head Starts full day?
So, Madam Chair, what happened is that the new Head Start program performance standards allowed for the leadership in the Office of Head Start, the secretary, to determine whether or not they wanted to move forward with the dates that were established. I believe it was that we would be to full day by 2021, provided that the Office of Head Start was able to continue at the federal level to provide funding in order to make that happen. We received a letter in the fall, no, in January about alerting us to the fact that the secretary had made a determination that they were not going to move forward with that without additional funding, and no additional funding has been awarded in the federal budget to address that issue.
That's why we're staying at half day.
Correct. We're planning to maintain our current level at that 704 slots.
Okay. Good to know. Anybody want to give a motion? There's a motion, yeah.
So I move to approve, moving forward the two RFPs to council.
And I'll second that.
All those, and there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Motion carries. Good luck. And I got to get to item 9 is Phoenix Cares citywide homeless response. Oh, maybe I'm skipping somewhere. I'm sorry.
That was on information.
I'm jumping all over the place. Item 13, Parks Board's agenda review, February 22nd and March 22nd.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, the report today will cover February and March agenda of the Parks and Recreation Board. In February, the board was given their ethics and gift policy training that is required for anyone who's going to serve on boards and commissions, and so they received that training. Additionally, the information items included a communication update, which was the presentation of the annual report for the Parks and Recreation Department. We also had information reports about Margaret T. Hance and the status of that facility and where we are in the process. North Building at Margaret T. Hance Park also was requested by the Parks Board, and the Code of Conduct update was given as well. And basically what we're doing with the Code of Conduct is working through community process, which we are still working through the establishment of, to look at the rules and things of that nature that the community is looking for us to update. Papago Golf Course update. As you know, the Papago Golf Course, the clubhouse is under construction currently and should be open in the early fall. And so that update was given to the board as well. Consent item, request to vend at City Parks and the cell tower license agreement. And the policy items were the curation fee for the repository for Pueblo Grande Museum, and also the modification of park rules for the scooter use. And what the Parks Board did there is they asked us to come back in 6 weeks after a pilot to see how it was going. In March, which is coming up, there will be the Parks Preserve Initiative repayment update, which we're going to present to you today. Camp Collie RFQ and who's going to be running the camp this summer. Eastlake Park Historic Preservation Landmark designation, as well as the oversight report and attestation we're providing to the board that was reviewed by the Oversight Committee. Information discussion items are Fit Phoenix, as well as the 5-year CIP update. Consent items, another request to vend, another tower license transfer, and the policy item will be Los Olivos Urban Working Farm. And so that is the agenda that's before the Parks and Recreation Board this coming month and what was the past month.
Question about the Los Olivos, and I don't know. The question is that last council meeting, we received a petition, and so I'm not sure, I know it's not scheduled here, but I just want to know how that's going to play into this discussion.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, we're preparing a response with the law department that will be presented to mayor and council at the meeting next Wednesday. It'll be in the packet for your review to respond to that petition. And the Parks Board meeting is the following day, I believe.
Correct.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nope, that's,
Okay, we're on item 14, 3PI fund repayment. That's why you're staying.
yes. I have two more after that, too.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee. Today I have with me Tim McBride, who's from the Finance Department. He's in the Real Estate Division, as you may know. And we got some good news to share with you today about the Parks Preserve Initiative repayment plan. Just some background. In 2013, Council took action to pay off the deficit of $15 million and some change that was transferred from the 3PI fund to cover that deficit. In July of 17, the council voted to use the sale of park land to repay that 3PI deficit over a period of 5 years. And so we do have two properties that have sold, and the money, $1.7 million, has been put back into the 3PI fund as of March 1st. We have one property that's under negotiations currently. We have a third property that has been approved for disposal. There's an estimated value of that. We currently do not have a contract or a buyer for that. And then there's some other properties that are unrestricted, but we have not gone out for public process yet to ask the community if they would like those parks to be converted to something else. So that would be the first step in doing that activity. And that is the update that we have for you today for the 3PI repayment process. Yep, sure can.
Jerry, I'll go first and then I'll ask some questions. You want to go?
What slide would you like me to be on?
That one.
Okay.
Hi, Jerry Van Gass, Phoenix, Arizona. That's good news. We have a parcel sold. The money's, in, I got the ledger posting, so we all know it's there. I want to give a shout out to Inger right now. It was almost 3 years ago, this coming June, that she assumed the role of director, parks director. And the transformation in the interim has been incredible. We've got almost twice as many rangers out there. The flatlands are being patrolled. The projects, the scope of projects underway at South Mountain, Piastoa, North Mountain, the scope is larger than anywhere in the city and in the country. But no other city has a fund like 3PI. I mean, the voters had vision here. This is what they wanted all along, and they weren't getting it. And so I'm out there every day, and right now it's just flooded with tourists. They can't believe our natural resources and that they have access to them. They don't realize they're paying 1/10 of 1% every time they buy something in Phoenix, but they don't care. They're not being hounded with extra fees, etc. But what we would like to see is, there's still unrestricted parcels. We'd like to see those vetted. This is the optimum selling time for real estate. We need to get them listed and out there, because I know they'll sell. And I gave Deborah a copy of the DVD from the subcommittee meeting last year before we went to city council, the May meeting, at which time we knew, you can look at the numbers here, and it was acknowledged that even the sale of all these would only cover about half of the 15 million that was transferred out of 3PI back in 2013. And at that time, last year, we, the process was going to be, there's some 7,000 excess city parcels out there. To put those out, list those and sell those and use proceeds from those to pay off the remainder, the balance of the 15 million. All we got from the July 6th meeting was the ordinance of authorizing parks to do their part and sell these parcels, which they're doing. And city staff said they'd come back with a plan in the fall to cover the rest of the $15 million. We've seen nothing, absolutely nothing. So, that needs to be addressed. In the meantime, we'd like to get these other properties listed and out there and move forward. We've got 5 years, but, if we can do it, now's the time to sell property in Phoenix. And we've got all these properties we're paying to maintain, and who knows how much that's been over the decades. We're maintaining them on our dime, and we can sell them, and there's a revenue source. So I'd like to see that move ahead, and because this one property sold, we've had another public interest attorney come forward that wants to volunteer his services in getting this money back. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. So in talking about the 3PI, the other unrestricted excess, what is the process for that? Who are the, I'm assuming you will have to talk to council members because it's in their area, but I think for the public, what is the process to start moving those?
Vice Mayor Pastor, members of the subcommittee, the process would be to have a initial public meeting with the community after we talk to the council member in the area that property resides, to see what their interest is in selling that property, because then the 5-step process would begin after that. If we, as the city, took on the 5-step process at the end, we might have the approval to do it, but we might not have a buyer. And so we first need to see if there's an interest from the community in not letting this be a park anymore. And it's going to vary from site to site, and it's going to vary probably from council district to council district.
I think that's probably what some of the dynamics is regarding Jerry and his friends of the 3PI, is that then there's another layer of, I don't know what term to use, but there's another layer of checks and balances. And it would be nice maybe next time at the next meeting to bring us a map of all the unrestricted excess and what districts they're in, so that we can look to see, where those properties are and start that conversation.
We can do that.
Great.
Okay. All right. And that's what we'll do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Park hours.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, this was a request also of the subcommittee last month to review park hours and related staffing to those park hours. And so we have a wide variety of facilities. We have 182 parks within the Parks and Recreation Department. We have some specialty facilities and things of that nature. Parks are categorized by type or size. Many of the parks are mini parks, so they'd be like less than an acre, and some of them are as big in the community district parks as 100 acres. And so you've got a wide variety. So the hours are set accordingly. The smaller parks, like the neighborhood mini parks, they open at 5:30 in the morning, but they close at 10. Community and district parks open at 5:30, but they close then at 11 o'clock. Some exceptions to be noted: Willow, Falcon, Maryview, and El Oso parks. We have some agreements with the schools nearby that have warranted some changes. So during the weekdays that school is in session, they're open after school and in the evenings, and then on the weekends. And so that's a little bit of difference from some of the other standard times. Mountain parks and preserves, the trailheads open at 5 o'clock every day and close at 7. And that's a change that happened several years ago through budget reductions. So this last year, we were able to open 3 trailheads for extended hours. So they're open until a little bit later so that people can go and hike in the summertime. So those extended summer hours, and that's at 3 locations, one in the North Mountain, one at Piastoa Peak, and the other one over in Ahwatukee, which is at the Pima Canyon Trailhead. The exceptions, again, to that, Camelback Mountain is both the Cholla side and the Echo Canyon are sunrise to sunset, and Rio Salado is sunrise to sunset as well. Our staffing, we have a variety of types of different staff. We have maintenance staff who work to maintain the parks, whether they mow the grass, pick up the trash, clean the bathrooms, those kinds of things. They have 2 sets of hours seasonally, 6 a.m. to 2:30, and then summertime 5 a.m. to 1:30. We have rovers that are usually recreation staff who go throughout the parks in the evenings and the weekends to keep an eye on the activities, the reservations, the field allocations, things of that nature. Park rangers, we have both mountain park rangers and flatland park rangers. Because the mountain parks for in most cases close at 7 o'clock, the gates close at 7, even though people can hike till 11. They're on a different shift than the flatland because the flatland parks are open longer, and so the rangers have different hours compared to what service they're providing. Community centers, we do have several community centers. We have 32 community centers, different sizes again. The community centers that are larger, would be like the Paradise Valley Community Center, Desert West. Those are open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 9. Fridays and Saturdays, 9 to 6, generally. And then the smaller rec centers like Lindo or University, they're usually open 4 hours a day, and the general hours are 3 to 7, Monday through Friday. There's a couple of situations where there's some Saturdays at some of those centers, but not all of them. And that completes the report that I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions or make any clarifications.
Councilman Nowakowski.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So do we also have like park people that coordinate the parks, or the directors of different parks?
So we have coordinators that are responsible for a wide variety of parks. For example, I'll just use the South Division. There's 56 parks in the South Division, and there's one coordinator 3 that manages all of the reservations, all of the field rentals, and all the staff that are the rovers that go out and look at the reservations and make sure things are happening. So there's generally on the evenings after 5 and on the weekends from 8 in the morning till about 11 at night, there's generally 2 to 3 people on per division. So across the city, you might have 9 people total looking at the 182 parks.
Those are more rovers than they are.
And they're part-time employees, that's correct. But there is not, unless there's a community center in the park, there's not a coordinator that's associated with each individual park. Not a full-time coordinator, no.
In the past, we actually used to have coordinators and individuals that were out in the park making sure there's programming and that the facilities were up to par and all that, right?
Yeah, over the years, through budget reductions, we've lost a few of those individuals. We lost a lot of the special event staff as well. But we do every night we do have people out. It's maybe not as many as we had in the past. And because, like for example, in the South Division, there are 3 people trying to get to 56 different parks. Now, some don't need to be gone to as often as others. Some, like Cesar Chavez, for example, they have a lot of activity going on in that park. They need to have more focus. But a small mini park might not need to have more than a drive-by that one night to take a look to make sure that nothing negative is going on in that park.
One of the things that we hear out there is that we have most of all our soccer fields, baseball fields, basketball courts, and other facilities just jam-packed of individuals that are using it. And then sometimes community members don't understand that you can reserve a field or a court. And then they say, well, we're on here first. And then there's a little dispute. And there's not really a person that oversees a large park after hours from, let's say, 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock, when most of the chaos and activities happen. Yeah.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Pastor and Councilman Nowakowski, that's correct. They could be at a park a couple miles away, and so it might take some time for them to get back there. That's correct.
So what I like to do is I like to figure out some of our regional parks, the bigger parks that actually have the football, soccer fields, the baseball diamonds, the facilities where probably we would have to have somebody there in the evenings. What it would take, or what is your opinion is that we would have to hire, if it's part-time, full-time people, to actually make sure that there's someone out there. Over and over, we get calls about the restrooms needing service or toilet paper, et cetera, or even just turning on the lights, turning off the lights, and just that customer service that people used to get. I know that we've cut a lot of our youth programs because of funding, and we've really allowed the nonprofits and community organizations to kind of come up with their own leagues and all that. And at the same time, they're asking for more help or more customer service. And with the staff that we have, I mean, they have a great relationship with most of those groups, but I think that a lot of people really don't understand that we're shorthanded on staff, and it's not that we don't want to have staff out there. And I want to figure it out, what it would cost us to actually, especially on the regional parks. I think the Rovers are doing such a great job right now with what they, especially in South Phoenix with 56 parks that 2 or 3 individuals have to cover on a daily basis. But on the weekends, I mean, Easter Sunday is just chaotic everywhere. And I know our staff also needs days off. So I'm not sure what we need to do in the future, but if it's a lack of staff, then maybe we need to start looking into that.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, the other thing we do is when we know there are big days like Easter, we actually do modify shifts to address that with both maintenance and recreation. And so we do try to address that. And then throughout the rest of the divisions, South probably has the most amount of parks with 56, but there's 3 other divisions that have equal the amount. And then there's the downtown division that has a smaller amount, but they're very visible because they're in the central core. So it's South Division times 3. So.
And the other thing I was just thinking, Vice Chair, I'm sorry about that. I was just thinking with new technology that's out there, I know that I'm not sure what city it was. I think it might have been Las Vegas, that you basically can actually online order or reserve a park, turn on the lights. It just turned on automatically. It was kind of cool and different. So, instead of having rovers drive across town, and if there's some way to look into even new technology that's out there that we can actually hook up with some of our lights and actually do it through the social media, through digital media or so.
Vice Mayor Pastor and Councilman Nowakowski, the good news is we've started down that path.
Great.
We have 50 fields that do have those lights and the availability to turn them on. The problem is we have probably 50 to 60 more that don't have that capability, and so those are the ones we drive around to turn on the lights.
I was at a community meeting last night, and one of the comments that was given to me, and I think it goes to this rover situation or the dynamics of it, is they don't feel safe in the parks. One was runs in the morning, runs through Margaret Hance Park, and doesn't feel safe. The other is walking through in Kennel Park at 5:30 or 6 in the morning and doesn't feel safe. So there's a perception out there that the parks aren't safe. And I don't mean it in a negative way, but this is what comments that are coming from constituents. And I think that's going to be kind of a dynamic for us in the sense of perception. In politics, perception is reality, and I don't think that's true, but I don't know how we message that, and I don't know how we demonstrate that. And the only way I can figure out another way is by having somebody at the park, and they know where to go to find somebody. I think the large regional parks should probably have one person there versus trying to rove between two regional parks or however it works. But we probably should look at our model and see where, or do a not a study, or do where our peak hours are and what is the need of our peak hours, and then look at how we shift people into the peak hours, because peak depends on the season, it depends where it's at. So I think that's one of the challenges you face in this whole process.
Vice Mayor Pastor and members of the subcommittee, I think, we've got the maintenance staff that are in the morning and they're, going about the business of cleaning the park. They are eyes and ears, and they sometimes see things that we don't because they do start so early in the morning. And then, towards the middle of the day, when kids are in school, not as much activity in the park unless there's moms, with their kids that don't go to school quite yet. And then I think the evenings is really when it really picks up, and obviously, the weekends as well. I do think we have seen more use in our parks in the last several years. Again, I think it's partly because there's a few more people saying, you know what, there's a great open space. I don't maybe have a yard. Let me go over here.
Councilman Nowakowski.
The other thing is I've been taking my kids out to baseball practice. And this last week, I mean, it's just tons and tons of kids because spring break, even preparing for spring break. I mean, you had kids on the playgrounds till 10 o'clock at night, and you really had to kick them out of the park because they were just having a great time. So it's great to see so many young people out there, and also the, what's that program that we have with the van
Oh,
going
the
around?
mobile recreation units.
Yeah, the mobile recreation was out there until about 7 o'clock, and the kids just stayed in the park until 10. So, I mean, we got some great programs, and I think if we can figure out a way to make people feel safe. We talked about earlier, myself and the vice mayor were part of the Public Safety Subcommittee, is that there's some concern about safety, not just within our city, but also within our parks. And that was one of the things that people brought to our attention is how can we make our parks a little bit more safer? We're seeing more homeless individuals trying to camp out, but just hanging out in our parks. And people are feeling threatened, so then they call either Phoenix Cares or the police. And they were just asking us if there's more eyes on the park, because once you have more eyes on the park, you have less individuals doing bad things out there.
Aren't we putting Phoenix Cares, or we're adding something to the park regarding Phoenix Cares?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, currently we have 9 rangers that I think have really made a difference in the hot spots that we have. We've heard from several residents that in the past have been critical, that they've seen improvements because of the rangers. And so I think that is another step that's helped us. And, currently we do have 9 and like I said, 182 parks. And they don't have to go to all of them, but the ones that they do need to go to, they really need to focus on some of those. And so they have been doing that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Inger, for all your work.
Thank you.
You're staying, right?
I am.
Okay. Parks Facilities Maintenance Plan report.
I have guests for this one, so I am not alone in this particular. Vice Mayor Pastor, members of the subcommittee, today I have with me Ginger Spencer, the Public Works Director, and Art Fairbanks, the Special Project Administrator on special assignment to the City Manager's Office, to talk about Parks Facility Maintenance Plan. This was another item that was requested, I think, last month or the month prior, last time we had a meeting, and so we wanted to come back with you, to you with our findings. As I've mentioned a couple of times, we have 182 Flatland Parks, so that's going to be the parks that have grass and playgrounds and ball fields, things of that nature. 32 community and rec centers, 29 pools. We have golf courses throughout the city, as you're aware of. We also have historic properties, Tovria Castle, Heritage Square, University Park, and Memorial Hall at Steel Indian School Park, to name a few. So because of this diversity in the types of facilities that we have, and those are, those are buildings and things like that, but the parks also have, needs as well. So the two funds that help us with our repairs and our improvements, the operating budget helps us with things like day-to-day items, something today that goes out like maybe minor electrical. And so that's covered through our operating budget, and that's general funded. Capital budget is really the larger maintenance projects, could be in things like roof replacements, could be some plumbing replacements or major electrical service replacements. And the primary fund for that is Parks Preserve Initiative. And so those are where the large capital items come through. Just again, a reminder on what Parks Preserve Initiative is. It's a voter-approved sales tax. Again, this year, the fiscal year 18-19, we have about $19.8 million. 60% of that goes to parks, which includes community centers and things that are in Flatland Parks, and 40% goes to the preserves. We're allowed to do improvements, acquisitions, facility maintenance, as well as operations out of that fund. The 5-year maintenance plan, we've been working with Public Works over the past several months to identify the various needs that we have. We've identified about $13 million, a little bit over, of things that we need to address. We currently have $9.23 million budgeted through 3PI, which leaves a little bit of it unbudgeted. We are able to be flexible if something were that we have planned in year 1 has an issue in year 2, we can move some money around, so we have that flexibility, and we will continually monitor and review our facility needs. Again, just to briefly touch on some of the unfunded types of things, we have cameras, closed-circuit TV type things that we don't have in this plan. And then the other one is pool shells. As I mentioned, well, I maybe didn't mention, but our pool age is average is 60 years old. So the pools are about 60 years old on average. And so that's, we got some that are brand new. Cortez is brand new as far as being redone. But we've got some that were built in the 50s and the 60s. And so those, while they're not failing today, it just might be a matter of time. We've been able to repair some of the water sources that go around it, and that's where the most likely area would come. But we don't have any evidence today that any of them will fail, but that's something that we keep on our radar, and that's currently unfunded as well. And so with that, I'll answer any questions of the subcommittee about the parks maintenance plan. And again, many of the things that I mentioned are things that are fire, life safety, roofs, things of that nature. Different than changing a playground out or those types of things.
Do we have I'm assuming the 5-year facility maintenance plan is much bigger than this slide. So do we have,
Yeah, so we've got $9.23 million planned over the next 5 years of things like fire alarms, roofs, things of that nature.
so I guess I'm gonna dig into the weeds. I would like to see what the next 5-year facilities maintenance plan looks like and what year 2018 or 2019, 2020, what's on that maintenance plan. It's kind of like the CC, I don't know what we get in the transportation where they outline, where the capital improvements and they outline everything that's gonna get paid. Right. And what districts and what not districts, what parks, and what's gonna happen to the reserves, all the facilities that need to, that's gonna happen that year.
We certainly can provide that.
Pool shells. Pool shells is the shell, right?
Yes.
And so that could cause, the only reason I know so much about this is because I'm redoing my pool.
Uh-oh.
And so there could be leaks underneath the pool shell when they start to do maintenance and refurbish. I think I heard correctly, 29 pools we have.
That's correct.
What is the plan for that?
Vice Mayor, members of the subcommittee, you know, over the years, we've talked about as these, like Cortez, for example. I'll give you the example of Cortez. Cortez was perfectly fine one day, and one day we came in and it had sunk about 2 to 3 feet. And so for a period of 5 years, that pool was closed until we saved up enough money to refurbish it, and now it's the busiest pool in the city. We have several small, very small pools that get relatively low attendance, maybe 1,000 people, 2,000 people throughout the summer, in very close proximity to each other. And so, you know, we've talked about plans of could we consolidate some of those pools in the future, and I think that would take a larger investigation and a willingness to do that, because people get attached to the pool in their community. And so if there was a willingness to do something like that, you know, we could address it from that perspective. But we have, because the central core was so small in the early days, we have quite a few in the center city that are small and kind of draw from each other. I think the evidence at Cortez shows that it can go from, if you plan the pool correctly, it can go from a pool that's underutilized to one that is heavily utilized, and everybody would want to participate from all over a regional situation as opposed to just in my neighborhood. So those are some things we could look at. Currently, again, the plan would be if for some reason a shell failed, we would have to fix it. And the question would be, do you fix it as it is today in a square rectangular box, or do you make it a better facility that has slides and things of that nature that would cost you a little bit more money? And I think what we have seen from Parks and Recreation professional perspective is that the small box pools are not what draw people to the pool anymore.
You made a statement, there's not the will to.
If there was the will. I don't know, we haven't asked.
You need to get the will from.
I think it would be conversations with council offices and the community to make sure that that's the direction that the community wanted to go and the council wanted to go.
Okay. Well, in just looking at it, it's unfunded, so it's one of the needs.
Correct.
I think it's a hard conversation, just like you have to have hard conversations in families, and begin a dialogue to what the future looks like, and really what will happen in the future, and if we even if something does happen, do we have the money to then repair it? It's kind of, will the insurance cover it?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, probably at a 50 to 60-year lifespan, I don't know that an insurance company would. I think it's really more of a situation, do we build it as it was, which is going to be lots cheaper than if you build it as what maybe you want to build it for the future.
Right.
And so
then-
you'd have to take funds and reallocate and move around, and priorities would have to change if that's the case.
Okay. Councilman Nowakowski.
So how many days out of the year do we actually use our pools?
So the pools are used from June 1st, the first week of June, all the way through the last week of July. So it's about 8 weeks. There's a couple of pools that we extend, about 11 pools that we extend into August. What we traditionally see in August is attendance drops because people are going back to school and they got other priorities, and the weather's so nice that they maybe go out and hike and do other things. We see a real spike in the very beginning of the season, and then as the season goes on, the attendance drops off. So it's about 8 weeks of solid use.
One of the things, before we actually invest more in our swimming pools to upgrade them to standards and stuff, I like to look at the best practices of public pools. I know that other cities have these splash pads that are used for year-round activities, that you turn off the water, and I know we have that at Civic Space downtown, that it's used as a gathering place, and during the summertime and during the warm evenings, kids are running through that pad. So I'm wondering if there's somehow some way to look at other cities and what they're doing to make sure that we can maximize more than 8 weeks out of the year. I mean, we're a very hot city, so I mean, there's other cities that are a lot colder than we are, and they probably have about a couple months of warm weather, and what do they do with that swimming areas during that? The other thing too is to look at as a region and district by district to figure out, is there maybe some type of mathematics that you have 2 pools per district or so? Are they spread out evenly right now? Or is it because of the city has grown, that the inner city has a lot more than the outer part? I'm not sure, but just looking at that also, and I think creating a committee to really look at the future of our pools. I mean, I'll be a strong advocate to make sure that we maximize that space. And I know that other people drive all the way out to Glendale because they have a pretty cool swimming pool with these big slides and all kinds of water features and stuff like that. That looks like the trend right now. A lot of the new developments actually have water features within their own developments too. So figuring out where the needs are, and if there is not a need, if the homeowners association actually has their own water features and stuff, maybe there's not a need in certain areas of our town and stuff like that.
Thank you.
I guess when is it the Olympic size pool? It was the one on Highland and I think
Yeah, the Phoenix Swim Club, Phoenix Swim Club.
Swim Club. So it'd be interesting for the future to see if we could use one of our pools, redesign it so that then we could attract that organization to come back to Phoenix. I believe a lot of people in Central Phoenix drive out to Scottsdale, or they have their swim clubs or swim meets. I think it'd be interesting to see if we could, in a centralized area, be able to do that and then attract that type of void, or bring that void back into the city of Phoenix.
Or partner up with some
Or-
colleges or
yeah.
high schools, right?
Yeah, and figure out. I mean, that would be repurposing our pool, or at least one of them, but then also going through the study or this committee of looking at it.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to have that conversation. You might as well just, I look at it as we might as well start. May not happen until 5 years, but the conversation has started.
Thank you.
That it? No questions? Okay. Library facilities
Thank you.
maintenance plan? I was just, library facilities maintenance plan.
Vice Mayor and members of the subcommittee, good afternoon. We are here today to provide you with information on the library's facility maintenance plan, as you requested. With me also is Ginger Spencer from Public Works, Director of Public Works, and Art Fairbanks, the Special Project Administrator assigned to the City Manager's Office, and Martin Whitfield, who is Deputy Library Director for Management Services and Facilities. And so he's going to tell you about our facilities plan.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. The Phoenix Public Library manages 18 facilities, including 17 libraries and 1 warehouse. We have 4 million visitors a year in our facilities. We lend out approximately 12 million items to our customers, and we have over 15,000 programs that we provide for our community. Now, our buildings range in age from 6 years to 53 years old. For example, South Mountain Library is 6 years old, and then the Saguaro Library is 53 years old. The operating budget for the Phoenix Public Library is $39.7 million, and a portion of this budget is used for the Phoenix Public Library maintenance and repair projects. The Phoenix Public Library has an existing 5-year facilities maintenance plan, and in cooperation with our Public Works Department, we have identified $5.5 million in maintenance and repair needs over the next 5 years. The 5-year plan is budgeted based on priority, so the Phoenix Public Library can continue to meet maintenance needs and improve our facilities. Throughout the year, we work very closely with our Public Works Department to review the facility maintenance and repair needs, and if need be, we make adjustments during the year on our 5-year plan. This is a very brief presentation, but that's concluded. We'll take some questions at this time if you have any.
Are there any questions? So it looks like the maintenance funds comes out of the general fund? Is that how I'm reading this correctly?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, that is correct.
Okay. And so you have 5.5 million that have been identified.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, yes, 5.5 million has been identified over the 5-year plan.
Okay. So just like the parks, I would like to see what the breakout is and how you guys move in determining what's priority, what's not priority.
Certainly.
Because this 5.5 comes then out of this 38.8.
39.7, correct.
Okay. I don't know. Oh, well, yeah. So you use federal, state grants and other restrictive funds for maintenance?
No, let me back up. No, you are correct, Vice Mayor. Out of the 38.8
Out of the general
correct,
fund, then
yes.
5.5 can come
grant
out
fund
of
is
that.
used for other projects, yes.
Okay. No questions? Perfect.
All right, we'll
Thank
be
you
happy
very
to
much.
get you
You
that
got it
information.
easy. That was easy for you.
Anger took all the hits.
Yeah, exactly. That's
You
exactly.
got lucky.
I don't think I have any call to the public. All right, and then future agenda items. I would like a report on after-school program. I have the mobile unit. And then I'm very curious, I don't know if we, just an individual briefing or others want to know, would like to know about the north building and Margaret Hance Park. How's that moving? I got questioned on that last night, and so.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we can provide a Margaret Hance Park update at the next subcommittee meeting and where we are in that process.
And then the north building?
We can also provide a status of the north building.
I'd also like to see a future agenda item where, I remember about 5 years ago, we used to have water safety. There was a lot of drownings going on, especially in the Maryville and southwest side of our city. Those funds kind of went sideways. I'd like to figure out what are we doing now with, especially with fire, if there's some type of prevention programs that are out there. And if there isn't, what would it take to bring some of that back? Because we're seeing over the last couple years that increase of drownings coming back again.
We can provide an update on the water safety efforts between the coordination between fire and parks.
Okay, perfect. We need adjourn.